Hello all, welcome. In this video, we'll explore how we can take a ADK agent which doesn't have any rich user interface and apply rapid agent development skills to build a A2UI agent which with rich UI components to enhance the non-A2UI ADK agent to build a A2UI ADK agent. We'll also deploy this agent to the agent engine, register it with Gemini Enterprise app, and also test it using browser testing on Gemini Enterprise. We have an existing agent called Care Connect Navigator. Let's explore the functionality of this agent using ADK Web so that we understand what it can do. I'm running ADK Web now, and this will bring up the agent in the browser, and we can test this agent by selecting the right agent and all the functionality. As you can see, the functionality includes selecting a provider in a particular area, and the provider could be of different types. We have to select a plan, the type of plan, HMO or PPO, select a particular provider and the availability of that provider, and based on that you can book an appointment. This is for finding a provider for your particular plan and booking an appointment with the provider. Now, as we interacted with this agent, we noticed that the entire interaction is very textual. Let's see how we can use A2UI to improve this agent to provide a rich interface. So in order to build A2UI agents easy, we have built a bunch of skills like A2UI developer, A2UI UX designer, the browser tester, the Gemini Enterprise agent register, different kinds of skills that are needed in order to build and deploy these A2UI agents easily on using anti-gravity. Now we'll apply these skills. Specifically, the first skill would be for UX design. We'll type in a statement in English saying, hey, I want to generate a UX design for this agent so that it is built using A2UI. It automatically picks up the A2UI UX designer skill. And by using this skill, it actually runs a complete test on this agent end to end to figure out the workflow of the agent. And based on that, it proposes a UX design. As you can see, it is showing the observed flow of interaction between the agent and the user. And it is actually generating a proposed A2UI mapping based on what the user sends as a request and what the user gets as a response back from the agent in text. So it figures out what is the right UI component to be used in each interaction. Since this skill is dependent on A2UI spec that can keep changing, the skill has an inbuilt capability to update itself. It asked me a question whether it should update itself, and I said yes, based on which it is actually running that script to update the skill itself. Once the skill is updated, it actually generates the UX design, and it takes a few minutes to generate. I speeded up this. As you can see, it also generates the wireframes for each individual step. So you can see the step 1, step 2. First it does the plan selection, and once the user confirms the selection, it goes for provider selection, where it does the provider selection based on a particular provider, and it tries to find the specific time a provider is available, and then there is confirmation. But it seems to have missed one step where it should allow the user to choose a particular location where for the providers and also the type of provider. So that's missing. We'll ask it to include. So as you can see, it may take a couple of iterations to improve the UX design, and right now it actually generated the UX design where the specialist type can be selected and the region can be selected. So depending on your use case, you may have to go through this multiple times in order to refine the UX design. Now we'll use this updated design to generate the code. I'm typing in the command in English again to generate the code. This will apply the A2UI developer skill now, and it will pick up the developer skill and it will create an implementation plan. The skill has access to A2UI examples, and it knows how to create an A2UI agent using the A2UI examples, and additional code that is needed on the top of ADK agent for A2UI. It generates an implementation plan, and once you choose to proceed, it goes ahead and creates that agent code in that new folder, Care Connect Navigator A2UI in this case, where the UX design is, it actually creates the code there. As you can see, the code is actually referring to specific components in the implementation plan, where the A2UI agents output will include A2UI JSON in addition to the textual output that a general ADK agent will offer. The code generation is in progress in parallel, and within a few minutes the agent code gets generated and it is all placed into that specific folder it has created for the A2UI agent. Once the code is generated, it will also start a test to verify that the output has A2UI JSON as expected. The code is now generated, so let's explore the code in that folder. There is a regular agent.py, but now it also has instructions to include the A2UI components. So it has the rules for A2UI, it has the flow guidelines for each step, and it also has references to the A2UI specific examples of how the A2UI JSON should be generated, which are included in a different location. So there is a search criteria example, plan selection example, etc. And of course there is reference to the tools. So let's look at the A2UI examples.py, which has specific examples that are referred by the agent.py. So there is the plan selection example with specific components, search criteria example, and the provider selection example, which includes the specific components of how the structure of the output should look like. And also there is A2UI schema that is also included, which is it has taken from the spec. The most important part is that agent executor file, which includes all the code that is needed as a ADK agent to A2A executor. This is the bridge between A2A specification and the ADK specification, and this includes the code that is required for deploying this agent as a A2A agent on the agent engine. Specific part is this A2UI JSON that gets split up as text part and the data part as part of the agent executor. It takes the ADK agent's output and it reformats it by splitting it as required by Gemini Enterprise in order to display it. So all this code is included in addition to a regular ADK agent code inside the package. Now let's try to deploy this agent to agent engine in a particular project. I have to specify the project ID, as well as the deployer will ask for the deployer bucket, which I gave. And now it is using that to generate the deployment script. This uses a Python script based deployer to deploy the agent. It generates the deployment script and it runs it. The deployment usually takes a few minutes to run, so I speeded up this part, as well as it might have some issues that we'll try to fix and redeploy if it has to. Finally, the deployment is now successful and it shows you the reasoning engine ID using which it has deployed this onto the agent engine. Our next step is to register this agent with Gemini Enterprise, and I am providing the Gemini Enterprise app ID to register this agent with. So this invokes the agent registrar skill. A2UI agents require authorization resource to be created, for which the agent registrar requires the client ID and client secret. It cannot create itself automatically, so it will give you specific instructions on how to create the client ID and client secret with the OAuth client, and using which you can create that and supply those parameters, and the registrar will use those to register the agent. The agent is registered with Gemini Enterprise, and now we'll provide user permissions. You can do it to the specific user, and in our case we'll just give it to all the users so that we don't have to type specific email addresses. I'm giving the role agent user. The agent can now be tested from the browser using the Gemini Enterprise client application. I'm asking Anti-Gravity to test this agent by providing the specific URL for the Gemini Enterprise app. This will invoke the browser tester skill to test the agent running within Gemini Enterprise. It will create a plan and start testing it. Since the registrar added the auth resource for this agent while registering, this will require authentication the first time. It invokes the OAuth2 flow that it has to go through by clicking on the authorize button and allowing the permissions for the agent to access resources. The browser tester runs pretty slow, so I'm going to speed up the browser testing. This testing is being done automatically by Anti-Gravity by accessing the Gemini Enterprise app within the browser. As you can see, all the rich UI components are coming, but they may not be right for the first time. So you may have to either manually tell the Anti-Gravity to refine your agent's functionality. It might take a couple of cycles for you to get the final result. In my case, I had to go through a couple of cycles to get the desired results. So I had to prompt it a couple of times and then finally achieve the result. And at last, after a couple of cycles, I'm able to get the results that are desired, and you can see the flow working well with the browser testing, where it is able to get the rich UI for selecting the healthcare provider, for selecting the area of service, and then checking the plan type, finding the provider, and confirming the appointment after checking the availability. So that was an example of how we can take an existing non-A2UI ADK agent and build and deploy an A2UI rich agent using rapid agent developer skills on Anti-Gravity. Thanks a lot for watching.